of the main thoughts going into that record was we have to be heavier than Vulgar. This has to be a heavier record. And I was thinking to myself, how is that possible? You know, how do we do that?
Each record we wanted to outdo the next record.
And we just said, we're going to make the most balls-out, kick-ass record we can make.
Far Beyond Driven was released on March 22nd, 1994. Without significant radio or MTV play, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts.
That was the most abrasive record I could ever imagine, and it went and blew up the charts at #1 and just scared everybody, which was great.
And it was funny because all the magazines you'd read and see, it'd say, overnight sensation, Pantera. You know, we're like, we've been out slaving on the road for 4 hard years and 7 years in the nightclubs before that. It was a pretty exciting time.
For metal, to have a band like Pantera come out and enter the charts at #1, it just showed you that there's no way you can't kill this, because there will always be a band that's going to fly that flag in the face of everything else. And Pantera was the band in the 90s that did that you could actually say saved metal.
But the keepers of heavy metal's incendiary flame were about to get burned by their own lead singer. On the road promoting Far Beyond Driven in 1995, Philip Anselmo began distancing himself from the band.
He would just start freaking out about stuff, and nobody would know why. One night we were playing a sold-out show in Hamburg, and he didn't get the reaction that he wanted out of the crowd, and he just comes back there and says, "F y'all, I quit." You know, obviously he didn't quit, but this is when things started really going sideways, you know.
I can recall Darrel calling me and saying, "Look, I don't know what's going on with this dude, but..." You know, and of course everybody kind of thinks, well, you know, maybe it's the fame thing going to your head.
Anselmo attributes his erratic behavior to chronic back pain caused by years of violent on-stage performances.
It causes isolation. It causes your entire lifestyle to change. And at that point, Pantera was gigantic, and I had a job to do. Through pharmaceuticals or anything to get me up on that damn stage and desperately not feel that pain. I would drink an entire bottle of Wild Turkey before we went on to just be numb, which of course was affecting my performances and putting some worry into the band, you know?
But the band's separation anxiety would only deepen as their singer began treading a dangerous narcotic path. Next, Philip's dance with death.
This nurse leaned over and said to me, "Welcome back to life. You overdosed on heroin."
When Behind the Music continues.
It's incredible to play a show like this in front of all you people.
By 1995, Pantera was the heaviest metal band in the world. Propelled by guitarist Dimebag Darrell's frenzied fretwork, the Texas outfit's bone-rattling brand of musical mayhem shook the senses of millions of delirious fans.
When you buy a Pantera, you're going to get bludgeoned, you know what I mean?
Pantera is about as metal gets, you know?
We were a machine. That's the way we operated. All the parts fit together, you know? When we played, when we did something like I mean, we all hammered it together.
But on stage, the Pantera machine was showing signs of malfunctioning. As the crowds grew larger, singer Philip Anselmo became increasingly unpredictable.
Initiative out there.
He wouldn't treat the fans with any respect, wouldn't treat us with any respect.
Quit making all the stupid noise.
Just, you didn't want to be around him. He was a miserable person, you know?
I could get the ground to crack in half and have everybody dive into it. You know, yeah, I could tell people to take off all their clothes and have an orgy on the floor, and they would do it, you know?
Phil had a lot of opinions, and I would just listen to what he was saying, and I would say, oh, jeez.
I got a big mouth and a big choice.
Get the lawyers on the phone. There's going to be a riot.
The politics.
We're
Just as Pantera was scaling their greatest heights, Anselmo was hitting bottom. Burdened by agonizing back pain, the singer's erratic antics threatened to take down America's toughest band.
You never knew what Phil was going to get on stage. Some nights you'd get the Bulldog, and other nights you'd get the dude on 12 Somas or whatever he was on and laying on his back screaming in the mic. You know, it was embarrassing.
He always complained about his back. We all told him all the time, get x-rays, go to the doctor, let's get it fixed so we can get on with this, and he never would.
They wanted to fuse the discs from the front, cut a piece of my hip out to use the actual bone as the cartilage part. And I was like, well, what's the recovery time on something like this? Oh, well, it's going to be about a year and I'm like, a year and a half? No way, man. I've got work to do.
To maintain Pantera's frantic pace, Philip dabbled with more dangerous solutions for his perpetual pain.
I was really turned on to heroin. I realized that it would numb me out so much that the pain was gone. And that's like putting a Band-Aid over cancer.
As the drugs dulled Philip's pain, he continued to isolate himself from the band. During the recording of 1996's The Great Southern Trendkill, Philip cut his vocals in New Orleans, while Dime, Rex, and Vinny laid down tracks in Texas.
He would do his vocals, and then I would bring him back to Texas after 2 weeks, and they would hear him. So there was more of a disconnect between the two. It was the only way we could work at that time.
I was unapproachable. My mind was not my own, and it was filled with discord, if anything.
It was just real uncomfortable, man. It was just what the fun was gone, you know? The unity that we once had wasn't there. At the time, I didn't know anything about heroin. I had no clue what it was.
On July 13th, 1996, an hour after a triumphant homecoming show at the Starplex in Dallas, Texas, Philip overdosed on heroin. His heart stopped beating for nearly 5 minutes.
Somebody comes running around the corner and says, Phil's out. I saw him laying on the ground blue and people hitting on him and all this. And I was like, damn, dude had heat frustration. He said, no, dude, he OD'd on heroin. I'm like, heroin? You gotta be kidding. No way, not Phil Anselmo.
And the paramedics get there and they put him back on the couch and give him a shot, I guess, of adrenaline and put the oxygen on him and pump his chest and revive him.
I didn't know what had happened, and had all these tubes hooked up to me, and I sat straight up and threw up immediately. This nurse leaned over and said to me, "Welcome back to life. You overdosed on heroin."
The following night, Philip apologized to his bandmates and crew, but Pantera would never be the same again.
I had never felt smaller in my entire life. I begged for their forgiveness, and I promised them and I swore to them that this would never happen again.
It was definitely a wake-up call for all of us. It's like something that's been obvious in front of your face for years and years, and you go, aha!
I thought I could do anything, and there wasn't a damn thing that could beat me. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Philip's ongoing struggle with heroin was slowly tearing Pantera apart.
The dude was on a steamroller to self-destruction. I don't think anybody could have helped him.
There's a different look in everybody's eye. That inch of doubt that was never there before. The lack of trust. You know, where you going, man?
When Phil was on, he was on. Darrel would have never taken that away from him or anything, but he was very embarrassed by him.
I relapsed maybe 2 more times, and I felt so guilty afterwards. I was like, why the hell? Why?
Philip's struggles turned Pantera into a powder keg. Even vivacious guitarist Dimebag Darrel began tiptoeing around the volatile vocalist.
He would even try to be low-key when walking into a room if Phil was there. on purpose. Like he would kind of shadow his own personality just so that it didn't ruffle his feathers.
Dime and Vinny walked on eggshells for way too many years, waiting on that dude, waiting to see what that dude was gonna do, how he was gonna react to a certain situation.
The shell-shocked band didn't return to the recording studio for 4 years. While 2000's Reinventing the Steel was packed with Pantera's sledgehammer swagger, old tensions resurfaced on the road.
Darrel would make an effort to go over before the show to do a shot with him and go check on him after. He was pushing away all the people that really loved him and cared about him.
It was the same stuff, same song list, the same. Once again, the communication was so bad that no one would even go to Phil and talk about changing the set list before a tour started.
In late 2001, the band's tour was abruptly cut short by the tragedy of 9/11. They had no idea they had performed together for the last time. Next, a shocking murder in Columbus, Ohio.
It was like a real bad movie. None of it seemed real whatsoever. None of it. None of it.
When Behind the Music continues. After going full throttle for nearly 2 decades, Pantera hit the brakes in the fall of 2001. But vocalist Philip Anselmo wasn't ready to pull back. He quickly returned to the road with a side project called Down, joined by Pantera bassist Rex Brown.
The last thing that he told us when we finished Reinventing the Steel tour was like, I'm going to go home and take a year off. My back's hurting. I'm done with it for a while. A month later, he's putting out the Down album and recording it.
He even said, I'm not trying to tour on it. In 6 months, you'll have your new Pantera record.
I mean, I could sit here and just keep going and going. Any free time I had, I would start something that would turn into something awesome.
Then he puts out Superjoint, goes out tours for that. Then he does another Down tour, and then another Superjoint record. Okay, this is not what he told us.
I mean, how long do we gotta wait around for this thing?
With Philip focused on pet projects Superjoint Ritual and Down, Pantera's short break turned into an extended vacation, and for nearly 2 years, the singer remained out of touch with Dime and Vinny.
Can't you see I'm easily bothered by persistence? One step from lashing out at you.
You know, we couldn't communicate. Nobody would call us back.
We got everybody on the phone here, and we need to talk to Phil, and he would never come to the phone, ever. It was always sleeping in the shower, or there's a hurricane coming, he's got to board the windows up. I mean, give me a break.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? No way, punk.
They weren't calling me. I don't care what anybody says. And I know that I am just as guilty for not communicating with them. It was every damn body else's fault as much as mine.
It was a bunch of he said, she said nonsense that was going on, and I didn't get in the middle of it. A lot of it was nothing but horror. So at a certain point, there's no going back. You know, absolutely none.
In 2003, with Anselmo AWOL, the Abbott brothers reluctantly abandoned the only band they ever knew.
We were sitting there rotting away. Two of the best musicians on the face of the earth that play that kind of music were sitting there and having to take it in the face. No future, no nothing, just sitting there wondering what the is happening.
You know, this is like these two kids who've basically built this family business from the ground up, and then all of a sudden, they can't run that business anymore.
The idle time sent Dimebag Darrel into a spiral of depression.
You know, he'd never been off that long, and that was probably the worst 2 years, I think, of his life.
He'd call me loaded or whatever. I just go, dude, what's going on? He's just like, I'm just bummed out, man. I go, well, Dime, look at it this way, man. Good Lord gave you a gift. He put it in your hands, man. I said, you're the best guitar player in the world. I said, just get out there and just, you know, get Vinny, get some ass-kicking musicians with you.